You probably think being the nicest person in your office is keeping you safe. You avoid conflict, you say yes to everything, you stay late to help colleagues, you never complain, and you genuinely care about the people around you. And yet somehow, when layoffs come or promotions are handed out, you are the one getting blindsided. You are the one watching someone far more aggressive, far more difficult, far less likable walk right past you and into the future you thought you were building. So today, we are going to talk about something nobody in your company's HR department will ever put in an onboarding packet. Why being nice at work is not just failing to help you, it is actively working against you. And by the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly how this happens and what you can do instead. Let me start with a hard truth that might sting a little. Being nice and being effective are not the same thing. In fact, at work, they are often in direct conflict with each other. When you prioritize being liked over being strategic, you create a pattern that makes you easy to use, easy to overlook, and when budget cuts come, unfortunately, easy to let go. That is not a judgment on your character. That is just how organizations function when nobody explains the real rules to you. Here is the first reason nice people get fired first. They are invisible. Not invisible because they are bad at their jobs. Often they are exceptional. But invisible because they assume that good work speaks for itself. They put their heads down, they execute brilliantly, they solve problems quietly, and they never make a sound about any of it. Meanwhile, someone else on the team is sending weekly update emails, speaking up in meetings, and making sure leadership always has a clear picture of what they are contributing. Both people did excellent work, but when the company needs to make cuts, managers are not reviewing spreadsheets of every task completed. They are working from memory and feeling, and the person who made themselves known walks away with their job. The quiet one becomes a BL. And blurs get erased. This is genuinely unfair, but fairness is not the system you are operating inside. Visibility is, and nice people tend to avoid self-promotion because it feels wrong, uncomfortable, like showing off. They were taught to be humble. They were taught that good work gets recognized. They were not taught that recognition is something you have to engineer, document, and communicate. So they never do, and they pay for it. The second reason nice people get fired first is more dangerous because it looks like opportunity. Nice people say yes to everything. A struggling project needs someone to step in and stabilize it, just temporarily. A new initiative needs a leader, and nobody else wants it. 3 different teams need help with onboarding and documentation, and every single time, the nice person raises their hand because they genuinely want to help, and because saying no feels selfish. What happens next is something I want you to picture clearly. You are now buried. You are spending 60 hours a week on work that belongs to 3 different departments, none of which shows up cleanly in your performance review. The projects you could have owned, the ones that were strategic and visible and connected to revenue, those went to someone else while you were rescuing everyone else's messes. And 12 months later, when performance calibration happens, the people doing the deciding look at your year and they see a great utility player, someone who holds things together, someone reliable. And reliable sounds like a compliment until you realize it is a career classification. Reliable means you stay exactly where you are. The person who said no to the dying project and instead fought for the high-visibility strategic work, they got promoted. Not because they are smarter than you, not because they worked harder, but because they understood something you did not. Every yes is a trade. When you say yes to one thing, you are automatically saying no to something else. Nice people do not think this way. They think saying yes is always the generous, team-first choice. But what they are actually doing is trading their future for the short-term comfort of being liked. Here is the third mechanism, and this one is particularly brutal. Organizations use nice people as a sorting system without ever meaning to. The way it works is simple. When there is work that is hard, under-resourced, politically orphaned, or guaranteed to end badly, It needs to go somewhere. It cannot go to the people who push back or ask uncomfortable questions or insist on understanding scope before committing. Those people are too much friction, so it flows naturally toward the people who absorb, who say yes gracefully, who can be counted on not to make a fuss. Those are the nice people. And now they are doing the worst work in the building with the least support and the lowest chance of a meaningful outcome. When that work fails, and it often does because it was set up to fail, their name is attached to a failed initiative, not the person who handed it to them, not the system that under-resourced it, them. There's a phrase I want you to remember. Organizations do not drag you to the guillotine. They make you build it yourself. The nice person volunteers, takes on too much, gets buried in execution, produces invisible results, and then watches as the people they helped advance past them. And the entire time, every single step felt like the right thing to do. Now let us talk about the fourth reason, which is about credit. This one is simple and infuriating. When you do work collaboratively and you are too nice to advocate for your own contribution, the credit does not distribute evenly. It flows to whoever communicated the work. If you spent 4 months executing a project and your colleague presented the results, 3 months later, that is their project in everyone's memory. You know the reality, but the decision makers know the story they were told, and credit is not a reflection of who actually did what. Credit is a reflection of who made the work visible under their own name at the right time. Nice people share credit generously even when they should not. They deflect recognition back to the team when they should be saying clearly, "Here is specifically what I built and why it mattered." That is not arrogance. That is documentation. But for someone who has built their entire professional identity around not taking up too much space, claiming credit feels almost physically uncomfortable. So they do not, and someone else does it for them. Let us add the fifth piece to this picture. Nice people are the last to build the relationships that actually matter inside organizations. Not because they are antisocial, they are often the most socially warm people in the room, but because they confuse being liked by everyone with being trusted by the right people. Those are completely different things. Being universally pleasant makes you comfortable to be around. Being trusted by decision makers means that when a seat opens up at a strategic table, your name is the one someone mentions. That trust does not come from being agreeable. It comes from dozens of small interactions where you demonstrated judgment, honesty, and a spine. It comes from the time you told the truth when everyone else was nodding. It comes from the time you said his project has a structural problem, and here is why. Not to cause trouble, but because you cared about the outcome. Nice people avoid those moments because they might create friction, they might upset someone, they might make the room uncomfortable, and in avoiding those moments, they never build the depth of relationship that comes from being genuinely real with another person. Here is something worth sitting with. The people who advance fastest in organizations are not always the most skilled. They are frequently the ones other people want to work with, the ones who made your job easier once, the ones who gave you honest feedback when you needed it, even though it was not comfortable, the ones who told the truth about a problem instead of papering over it with pleasantness. That is not the behavior of someone who is simply nice. That is the behavior of someone who combines warmth with directness, care with clarity. And those two things together are extraordinary, but just nice, just agreeable, just conflict avoidant. That combination is a career liability wearing the mask of a virtue. Now I want to address something specific about what happens when nice people finally hit their limit, because it happens to almost all of them. After years of absorbing extra work, watching others advance, losing credit they earned, and feeling invisible despite genuine effort, something breaks. The bitterness starts. And when bitterness starts, nice people do the exact wrong thing. They disengage. They stop volunteering for anything. They do the minimum. They go quiet in meetings. They tell themselves this is healthy boundary setting and protecting their energy. But what is actually happening is they have removed themselves from the only spaces where the information they need actually lives. The best intelligence inside any organization does not come from training programs or company-wide emails. It comes from being in the room when real decisions get made, understanding why certain projects get funded, watching how conflicts actually get resolved. The moment you disengage from those conversations, you are operating blind. And operating blind in an organization that is already inclined to overlook you is a genuinely dangerous position. So what do you actually do with all of this? Because I am not here to just describe the problem. I am here to give you something useful. First, make your work visible on purpose. Not by bragging, by documenting. Send short, clear updates to the people who make decisions about your work. Not long, self-congratulatory emails. Just 3 lines. Here is what I completed this week. Here is why it mattered. Here is what is coming next. Do this consistently. You are building a record. You are making sure that when someone tries to reconstruct your year from memory, they do not have to. They have evidence. Second, learn to evaluate asks before you accept them. When someone brings you an opportunity, your first response should never be yes or no. It should be a question. Help me understand the full scope of what this involves. What does success look like? What resources are attached? Who else is involved? This is not being difficult. This is being someone who operates with judgment. And then when you do say yes, follow it with a written confirmation of what you are actually committing to, including what you will need to set aside to make room for it. Force the trade to be visible and on record. Third, start building relationships with intention. Not with everyone. You do not have enough time or energy for that. But with a few people you genuinely respect across different parts of the organization. Help them when you can. Ask real questions. Be honest with them. Do not perform, just be present and real. Because the opportunities that change your trajectory rarely come through formal processes. They come through someone thinking of your name when a seat opens up. Fourth, get comfortable with strategic disagreement. This is probably the hardest one for people who have built their identity around being warm and supportive. But when you have a genuine concern about a project or a decision, say it. Not aggressively, not to win an argument, but clearly and factually. Because the people who have credibility in organizations are not the ones who agree with everything. They are the ones whose judgment can be trusted, including their judgment about what is not working. Being willing to say what is true when it is uncomfortable is one of the most powerful professional moves you can make. It signals that you are safe to trust with real information. Here is the last thing, and I want you to really hear this. The goal is not to become less kind. Kindness is genuinely valuable, and the world needs more of it, not less. The goal is to stop letting your kindness be used as a mechanism that works against you. You can be warm and still say no. You can care about your colleagues and still advocate clearly for your own work. You can be generous and still draw a line around your time. You can be someone people love working with and also be someone who is impossible to overlook. That combination, kindness with backbone, warmth with visibility, generosity with strategic clarity, that is not something organizations can easily find. And it is definitely not something they can afford to let go. Stop hiding behind niceness as a reason not to advocate for yourself. Start understanding the actual game being played in your workplace. Not so you can become cynical, not so you can start playing political games, but so you can stop losing by rules you were never told existed. You are not invisible because you are not good enough. You are invisible because nobody told you that being good is only half the equation. Now you know. The rest is up to you.